Welcome to Club E. Hi, I'm Rick Brimacombe of Brimacombe and Associates. I'm your architect of business growth and will work with you to unlock and amplify the potential of your company. Today, we're talking about attracting and retaining talent in today's tight labor market. I want to thank our sponsors, Irish Titan, an e-commerce and web development firm, Highland Bank, a locally owned community bank, Romaine Berg, a digital marketing agency, Schwegman, Lumberg, Woosner, an intellectual property law firm. And please hit the subscribe button below. That will allow us to deliver better content to you, our wonderful audience. And again, you can now catch Club E on your favorite podcast platform. That's Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, and others. With that, I'd like to introduce today's guest. Welcome back, Renee Frey. Renee, you have spoken here on the Club E digital interview platform, as well as you've spoken over at St. Paul at our Club E audience and community there. So welcome back.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here again.
Yeah. Well, it's super to have you, and I'm looking forward to our conversation, given the tight labor market that we all find ourselves in. Very timely conversation today. But before we get going, and folks that maybe haven't seen you in your prior Club E appearances, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, your background, your firm, etc.
Yeah, so unfortunately or fortunately, I'm a diehard Vikings fan, depending on what day you're watching. That could be good or bad. I live in Hudson, Wisconsin. I have two young daughters and my husband. My office, I own TalentQ. We are a recruiting firm. We do nationwide recruiting, and then I also do job seeker coaching, resume writing, and all sorts of stuff. But our office is located in downtown Hudson, but we do work with companies all across the nation.
So how do you navigate this diehard Viking thing and having your office in Hudson? That's a little bit of a conflict of interest, I think.
I know I'm surrounded by Packer fans, and my in-laws are Packer fans, and when they are winning, it's painful. So when I watch the Vikings, I don't typically get anxiety, and they give me total anxiety. So maybe it's I keep drinking a couple beers to reduce the anxiety, but it's still, they drive me crazy.
All right. Well, as long as it's a Minnesota beer and not one from Wisconsin, then we're good with that, right?
Well, most of the time it is a Surly Furious.
All right. Well, that's good. Hey, let's dive right in. A lot going on in the labor market. Things are changing, some dynamics that are interesting, lots of stuff that's confusing. And speaking of anxiety, that creates anxiety. Talk to us and share some of your wisdom with our market and our listening audience about what's going on in the employment world right now. And then talk a little bit specifically about this term that's being coined, the Great Resignation.
Yeah, Rick. So the Great Resignation is definitely here. We are living it because back in September, I'm sure a lot of you have heard, 4.4 million Americans quit their jobs. And that's from the US Bureau of Labor and Statistics. 4.4 million. That's a record high. And I think that is actually a trend we're going to continue to see. Where that's coming from is COVID really forced people to reprioritize, reevaluate many aspects of their lives, how we work, when we work, juggling life and work. And a lot of people are determining that they want change in their personal and professional lives. So those employees are seeking greater satisfaction. They want continued flexibility, and it's really different individual by individual. So some may want to continue to work from home. Some may want more money. I know there were companies that had to reduce their internal salaries due to COVID to continue to stay in business, and some of those salaries haven't been reinstated. So that might cause an employee to look for another job because they don't feel like they're being compensated fairly. Or if you have an annoying boss and your company is now requiring you to come back into the office, but you feel a greater sense of balance working remote, you're going to quit and look for another job. And there's one silver lining though to all of this, is knowing that we can work remote. We have transitioned to that. And when you have an entirely distributed workforce, Rick, you can 1,000x your candidate pool, because if your company is willing to hire people remote, that opens up your entire talent pool to the entire United States. So you're no longer constrained by the Twin Cities and the talent here. And you would have access to talent that you may not have in the past.
So I'm going to just drill into that a little bit and can ask some questions, just a couple. May not know the answer, which is totally fine to say, hey, you don't know, but I'm just kind of curious. If you go back pre-COVID and you had a pie chart and we were saying companies were all in the office, companies were a hybrid, and companies were all remote, just ballpark, how would you estimate that? Or anecdotally, would you even feel comfortable commenting? And if not, that's fine, but I'm just curious. And then the next follow-up is going to be, what's it like now?
Yeah, so from my experience in the companies that we've worked with across the nation, pre-COVID, I would say about 20% worked remote or had distributed workforces.
Okay.
And now I've seen that change, and a lot of them change their model. The ones that are more nimble and flexible, I've noticed, are the software companies and the tech companies. They're all in with having entirely distributed workforces.
And then if you had to guess now, what percent do you think it would be that either entirely distributed or some hybrid model?
Yeah, I want to say guesstimate, I would say is about 50-50. So there are a lot of companies that we've seen that still have that traditional tie to having a brick and mortar office, having a physical location, and they find value in that. But then if you have, what I'm seeing is younger companies, they're definitely, again, more nimble and more open to total remote moving forward in the future.
So I think we've maybe introduced a few of the topics that my next question is going to be about. So my next question is going to cover a couple of the things that we've already introduced, and talk a little bit about, Renee, some of the things that companies should be thinking about when it comes to recruitment and retention of their talent. Obviously, those are two separate buckets and they're deep subjects. We could probably spend the whole hour on it here on that alone, but nonetheless, at least at a high level, talk a little bit about how companies should be thinking about recruitment and retention.
Yeah, those we could certainly talk an hour about, Rick. Well, let's start with recruiting first. So gone are the days when you post a job, you get a flood of qualified applicants, you review all the applicants, you invite your top 5 into the office, you interview them, you offer a person the position, and you make a hire, right? And especially if you're a small business like me, you don't have endless budgets to post on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Indeed. You have to be really selective in where you're spending those dollars. And so the single most cost-effective way to hire someone is through a team member referral. Asking your team who they know and having them provide names to you. Now, this is going to take effort. I'm not saying blast an email, oh, this is our job opening, do you know anybody? Now, that might work from time to time. However, internally, you need to create a referral culture. Or if you have an existing referral program that might be losing steam, you can reignite that. Bring your employee referral program back to life. So when I say create a referral culture, and this is, so it is always top of mind, and employees are consistently sharing referrals of people they know that they think would be a great fit at your company. And so you've got to discuss this in employee meetings. You can have posters around the office reminding people when they're walking to get coffee or breakfast. If you work remote, sending, postcards or a mailer. And then you've got to reward those people, because that is the single most cost-effective way to hire. And I wanted to share some keys to creating an internal referral culture. So set some really exciting parameters. For example, anyone who just simply submits a referral, whether they get hired or not, why don't you give them a $25 DoorDash gift card just for sharing an employee referral? Make sure your team knows how to submit an employee referral and keep it super, super simple. And then set expectations so that your team knows what's going to happen, that those referrals are treated like gold and they go to the top of the candidate pool, and tell them that they will have human eyes looking at their resume. They will have either HR, the recruiter, or the hiring leader physically look at their resume, and then have some SLAs, some agreements, meaning the referrals will be reviewed within 10 business days. And that's just an example. So when I was an executive recruiter at Target, team member referrals, as a recruiter, we had to go through the team member referrals and get back to them within 10 business days. Now, their applicant tracking system was super sophisticated, and it would funnel all the referrals to the top. So it was easy for us, but that's what our responsibility was. And if I didn't go through the referrals in 10 days, I was definitely on the naughty list, and my manager, was knocking on my door. And then if you hire someone who was referred, offer a big reward and recognize them for that referral. I've seen companies give anywhere from $250 all the way to $5,000. Some companies get a little more creative. It's not always about the cash, but they give time off, paid time off for employee referrals who are hired.
Is there a combo of those, or one or the other, that you personally like best, that you've seen work most efficiently in your career?
Well, I personally, I know a lot of people like money, extra money. We can all use extra money. However, this time off thing is really resonating with the younger generations who are now in the workforce. So, you might have to A/B test it, or if you have flexibility in your company, kind of do a pulse on your employees and see which one's going to motivate them more, because the consistency is you've just got to always have people thinking about referring individuals. Now, you can even take that one step further. If you have skilled recruiters internally at your company, and I'm not sure how many of you guys do, but as a recruiter, I could look at one of my employees' connections on LinkedIn. And if there was a job opening, I could analyze who the potential connections, which one of those might be a good fit for the role. I could jot those down and then go talk to the employee that's connected with them. And if they say, oh yeah, they'd be a great fit here or whatever, how awesome would it be to be on the other end? And then if someone you used to work with is reaching out about a job and you weren't looking for a job, and you get to submit them as an employee referral. So that's a super warm intro. Or if the employee is too busy, I've had it where I've reached out to people on their behalf and then just name dropped the current employee. And then we connect them again, and they're able to submit them. If they're interested, that employee gets to submit them as a referral. Because, our employees are here to help advance our companies, right? That's the main focus of everyone's job. And this should be the same philosophy around talent. When you create a referral culture, your team will feel that ownership to help make recommendations of people they know who would be a great fit. And they don't have to be friends with them. They don't have to be like BFFs. It could be an acquaintance. So, I'm sitting at swim meets frequently. It might be a swimmer's parent who I'm interacting with who might be a great fit for my company. It's all of those things is where you can find those referrals.
Okay.
All right, retention.
Retention, yep. So bucket number one, recruitment. Bucket number two, retention.
All right, a phrase you may have heard if you follow me is re-recruit, re-recruit, re-recruit. And what do I mean by this? You got to re-recruit your existing team. And, that's the most cost effective thing, is retaining your employees so you don't have to replace them, because replacing them could cost 6 to 12 months of their salary, which is expensive. So if you can keep the employees you have, it will save you loads of money and loads of headaches. And in fact, re-recruiting my team is the one thing that keeps me up at night. And I learned this concept I read Pam Borton's book. She was the Minnesota female Gophers coach. Her book is called On Point, and she's local, or she used to be local to the Twin Cities. But it's all about having you may think your team is happy and productive, hitting goals and crushing it, but you really can't fall complacent to engaging with them, because in the blink of an eye, that top performing employee is submitting their resignation for a more appealing job. And each employee has different needs and goals. So you've always got to be in the know. You got to make sure you're sitting down with your employees and asking what's important to them. Never, ever, ever make assumptions. And the 3 components that I want to share that are critical in re-recruiting your team is growth, challenge, and excitement. So your team should be growing, right? Create individual development plans, invest time into getting to know them and what areas interest them, learn their long-term career goals, and discuss how you can incorporate that into their position. And then being challenged, that keeps people wildly engaged. When you learn what your employees' strengths are, where they thrive, and where they might have gaps, you can help coach them and fill those gaps with different assignments to stretch them. And then lastly, excitement. If we're not having fun or we're excited, we're not thriving. So does your team believe in what they're doing? If not, is there something holding them back? And you can help work through those barriers with them.
Okay, the 3 things: growth, challenge, excitement. Do you weight all those equally, or do you put one of the 3 top of the list, or how do you kind of assess those 3 things?
Oh yeah, good question. Well, it all evolves with the sitting down and having those candid conversations, but I would say I weight all of them equally, because from my experience, it's like 3 legs to a tabletop, right? If they're not growing, then they're going to get bored, or if they're not excited to come to work, that's going to affect them as well. So you've really got to have all 3 of those to hold the tabletop equal.
And have you seen those 3 things change over the years? Or if we had this conversation 3 years ago, pre-COVID, would it have been a similar answer that you would have given?
Yeah, I think it would be similar. I think those are, I've been recruiting for 20 years. I've worked at a corporation, multiple corporations, and I think those are pretty common themes that continue in the working world for employees, what they're craving.
Okay. All right. So back to kind of the topic of the environments. We touched on it a little bit earlier, but talk to talent retention and how companies should approach that when you look at the different types of work environments. So we have the on-site teams, we have the hybrid, and then we have the full remote. So is talent retention strategy different as you look across those 3 categories?
Absolutely. And that's going to be individual specific and company specific. So Rick, if you have a company that's allowing people, like hybrid work is a term I'm hearing, where, like, for example, my husband, he works for one of the top 10 accounting firms in Minneapolis, and he gave up his office. So he's 100% remote. But if he wants to go into the office, he's able to, and they have hoteling stations where he can kind of set up for the day. But if you require people to be in the office, there are going to be different retention strategies, right? Because there are, that hallway talk and the water cooler talk is there if you're in person, but it's not digitally if you're remote. So you've really got to make an effort. So that depends on if you guys are in person, hybrid, or 100% remote. The strategies would need to pivot a little bit.
Okay. How about motivation? What are companies doing today to effectively motivate their employees? How has that changed over the years? And then I suppose the same question is there a difference between what the work environment is, whether it's a remote, a hybrid, or on premise?
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be different. Motivating employees is always challenging because every employee has different needs. And oftentimes those needs are changing and evolving. I like to find out what motivates my team by asking them and uncovering what's important to them. And my phrase is figure out what gets them out of bed in the morning. You know, this is very basic, but extremely fundamental. And you've got to ask them what motivates you, and then listen and let them respond. Being on the pulse and knowing what's important to them individually will show you what they need and what makes them feel fulfilled. And factors that I feel are most common with motivating employees are recognition and knowing that they're valued. And recently on one of my video podcast, Careers and Cocktails episodes, I interviewed John Bauer. He's a world-renowned SVP of supply chain leader. He's worked at Starbucks and Target, you name it, he's worked there. But I asked him to share one key element with hiring leaders who were listening. And he said something that just blew my mind, Rick. He said every single one-on-one meeting he had with his employees always started with personal questions. He didn't talk any business. He said, how are you? How are your children? If he knew about their hobbies, he would ask about that. And he found that this was an incredible way to relate to others, showing that he cared about them as people, not just results they were driving for the company. And I was so shocked at this because, one, it's super simple. And I don't know how many people are doing it. And so going back to motivation as a bucket, some key themes that I see in motivating employees is allowing them to be in charge of their careers. This is very empowering and can be extremely motivating. So when leaders listen to what their employees want, that creates motivation and loyalty, because we all just want to be heard. We all want to have our opinion matter, especially when it comes to our careers. And some other themes, similar to what I talked about before, career development and growth. Again, you need to find out what's important to them. Back in the day when I worked at Target Corp, I was extremely vocal and I couldn't figure out how to get to the next level. So I asked my leader, what do I need to do to get to the next level? And she said, you need to stretch in strategy. And so she gave me special projects to stretch me in those areas that I needed to grow in, so I could kind of step into that. And then once I mastered that, she saw that I was ready for a promotion. And if you have people in your company who are ready for leadership, but they're individual contributors, best thing to do is assign them someone to mentor. And if you see leadership potential in them, assign them a mentor and allow them to guide their mentee. And obviously check in with them and make sure you know how it's going. But this benefits both of those employees. It increases job satisfaction for both of those employees, the mentor and the mentee, and it can really prepare that person for future leadership roles.
Those are great ideas. I love that, assigning them a mentor. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's going to be powerful and impactful with our listeners, and add a lot of value. So thanks for sharing that. Seems like right now, finding and hiring new employees is the hardest thing that companies are facing. What are some creative strategies that employers can use and implement to try to find and then hire new employees in a market like what we're dealing with right now?
Yeah, so you have to go after the invisible talent, the people that are not looking for jobs, the people that don't have their resumes posted, that don't have open to work on their LinkedIn profiles. You have to go find the people who are gainfully employed. And these are the top people in their fields, the ones who aren't looking for a job, who are probably happy, but everyone can be swayed one way or another. A lot of times when we reach out to invisible talent, they're really hesitant to explore a new opportunity because they're happy and they're thriving in their current role. However, one creative tactic that we've implemented with our hiring leaders is, if we get someone interested, if we can schedule 15-minute exploratory calls between the prospective candidate and the hiring leader, that opens a tremendous amount of leverage. Because when, say I have a software developer opening, and I guarantee they're contacted 100 times a week, if not more, by recruiters. If I reach out to them and I get someone interested and they're still kind of hesitant, I can say, hey, well, would you like to talk to the hiring leader? Just purely exploratory call, so he can share exactly what it's like to work there and what he's looking for from a day-to-day standpoint. 9 times out of 10, they say yes. We have that conversation, we follow up after, and then the hiring leader will be like, oh my gosh, I'm super excited about that person, or, we debrief a little bit. 9 times out of 10, that person who had that exploratory call throws their name in the hat and wants to be considered for the position. And then they'll go through the entire interview process. And for us, when we're reaching out to invisible talent, obviously, this is our expertise, but it takes 7, if not more, touches: email, calls, text, social media, LinkedIn messaging. I mean, you name it, we try to find you. But, and if you can't get in touch with someone, I would encourage you to share a list, like a short list, with the hiring leader, and have the hiring leader reach out, whether it's sending an email, and your internal HR or recruiter could draft the email for you, and it's just coming from your email, you're sending it to these prospective candidates. That is powerful too, because when they're hearing directly from a hiring leader, like if someone was saying, hey, Rick, I've got this software engineer position open, I'd love to reach out. It's actually a new position, and talk about why it's exciting. Guarantee they're going to respond to you versus just a recruiter or HR at your company. So getting the hiring leaders involved, and I know their time is very short, but you can be really strategic and make the impact with them reaching out too.
Okay. All right. So good idea. Again, challenge finding and hiring new employees. You touched on a little bit. How do you, develop the relationship, get them inside to at least begin the dialogue? But what about the recruitment process itself? Any common missteps that happen during recruiting?
Yeah, I would say it's so reactive, right? Normally you're backfilling someone who quit, so that tends to be more reactive. So you're getting out the fire hose and you're trying to fill the position as fast as possible. And what I see missteps happen, Rick, are when you don't stop, pause, you got to take a step back, create a recruiting strategy. What companies are you going to go after? What are the must-haves for the position? Is everyone on the interview team in alignment with what those requirements are? What companies have you've hired people? What has been successful? Have we reached out and let the team know that we need some referrals for this? Do they know anybody? So it's really creating a robust strategy, because you've got to go where the talent is. So for example, I was hiring safety professionals for a huge company I'm sure you all have heard of, and they really difficult to fill positions. So what I did was I found and this was pre-COVID, there was a river cruise happening for the local safety group. And so I went to the cruise. And yeah, some of them were like, what's a recruiter doing here? And I'm like, well, I've got jobs and I'm here to find more people like you. So, you've got to go where the talent is. And with all of the job postings, if posting jobs is part of your strategy, which a lot of companies it is, you need to know where to post those to, right? Like some job sites are better than others. Like Dice is much better for technical professionals than any other platform. So knowing where you can effectively spend those dollars. And then another misstep I see is not having engaged interviewers. So I remember having a director at a company and he said, well, Renee, I'm not gregarious like you and I can't sell people on the opportunity. I was like, wait, hold up. Of course you can. You, just because you're quieter, that you can still sell the opportunity. It's just in your own way. You still need to talk about why you love working where you work, why you continue to stay there, what brought you there in the first place. You can share all of that in your own manner. You don't have to be gregarious and outgoing like me just to get someone excited about an opportunity. And every single person in the interview process should be sharing that story with the people that they're interviewing, because something that someone says might resonate with them more than what someone else says. And you've got to share why it's so great to work there, and then make sure you remember it's a two-way street. The candidates are interviewing you just as much as you're interviewing them. So give them ample time to get all of their questions answered, because that's a big deal. Resigning from a position, potentially going to a new position where they don't know the people, they have to learn the whole process of workflow. There's some fear behind that, right? Something new. So make sure you give them ample time to ask any question they have about working there. And one tip that I love for our clients to do is, if they have someone in a similar role and they are interviewing, now this could be virtual or in person, but to do a peer coffee. And that would be the candidate meets with someone at the same level. However, they are not interviewing them. They're just asking them questions like, what is it like to work here? And just more candid. And then obviously your team is still evaluating that individual. However, they can get more questions answered of like what the day-to-day is. And I've seen that be really successful as well to get people interested in working for companies.
Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground, and they meaning the audience, I think got a lot of good ideas here. Contact info for you is in the comments section. But before we go, a couple of last questions. Had an interesting career working in your own business, working for corporate, serving big clients, small clients. Was there a lesson that you learned over the course of your career that you wish you would have learned sooner?
Oh, great question. For me personally, I would say mindset. So, and I'm a total growth mindset person, but I really dug in about, let's see, I've been in business 7 years. So probably about 5 years ago, I really dug into mindset and really uncovering the limiting beliefs that I had that, my parents put into my subconscious mind, and working through those. I would say that personally. Now, on the flip side, for employers, I would say re-recruit, re-recruit, re-recruit.
All right, good, very good. I like them both. And I definitely have written down here the re-recruit thing in my own notes. So I hear what you're saying there. All right, so as we look at our talk today, if you tried to tie a bow around it, given the holiday season that we're in, if you tried to kind of boil it down to one key takeaway or one thing that covers enough of the topic today that you'd like the audience to bring with them, what would that be and why?
Gosh, engage your teams in finding your future employees and getting those hiring leaders involved every step of the way, like utilizing them to reach out to prospective candidates. It's going to be really, really effective. And for everyone on the call, I wanted to extend a complimentary strategy session with me. I know Rick will put it in the notes, but I know all of your companies are so different, but if we jump on the phone, I can give you some really great tactics quickly that you can implement and get off to the races quickly. That'll benefit you.
Okay. All right. So recruit probably was the one key thing that I took away. And then again, back to that mindset, and in particular, growth mindset. Anything else you'd like to leave with our audience?
No, I think that was a lot. We covered a lot, Rick.
All right. All right. Well, then we'll close by saying go Vikings. And thank you for joining us again, Renee. This is, I believe, our third time together here at Club E2, again on the digital interview, one talk in the St. Paul location. So thank you for joining us. Your contact info is in the comments field, but for those people listening, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can email me at renee.frey, F-R-E-Y, at talentq.net, or you can go to our website, talentq.net, and all the info is there.
All right.
And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to be here.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Lots of wonderful information, some actionable content, which is what we try to make Club E all about, which is why we've had you back a couple times. And I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Yeah. Thanks, Rick.
Okay. All the best. Thank you.